Yo, what's up? Welcome to the Kind of Funny Gamescast, episode 65. I'm one of your hosts, Blessing Adeoye Jr. That's right, Tim Gettys is dead. And joining me is one of the coolest dudes in video games, Greg Miller.
How did Tim die?
He tripped over his little puppy.
Moose?
Moose, yeah, thank you. He tripped over Moose, fell on Cool Greg.
Cool Greg was holding a bunch of knives.
He was holding a bunch of knives, and that's how he went out. R.I.P. That voice here is the voice of twitch.tv/Andy Cortez.
Hey, everybody. Happy to be here. Talk video games with you.
And also joining us is the founder of the Summer Games Mess, GamesBeats, Jeff Grubb.
Woo! Hey, thanks for having me, guys. This is a lot of fun. I'm not going to take credit for it, but I'm glad Tim's dead so I could be here.
Hey, man, you're not the only one. I don't know what Tim's up to, but he's busy, and so he's not here, and so it's me hosting. Jeff Grubb, it's awesome to have you. I'm excited to have you because the topic of today's show is going to be all about Summer Games Mess and what we can expect this summer from games announcements. Greg Miller.
I'm sorry, Jeff, I always thought your name was Jeffy Grubb. Is not correct? Have I been saying it wrong this whole time?
Yeah. This is a funny joke you got going here with Greg Miller. So, I'm having a wonderful time already. You didn't tell me it was going to be like this, Bless, when you invited me. I didn't know it was going to be hostile.
See, that's the thing I love about hosting shows, is that I never know what energy we're going to start off Gamescast with, because it could start off anywhere. We could start off talking about vor and the meaning of vor and looking into what vor means, as we did about a year ago. Or we could start off.
Why didn't I get that one? That's the one I want. I want to talk about vor.
We can talk about vor. What's your favorite vor?
Anything involving like Wario's mouth. He's got that big open mouth. Yeah.
Right.
You guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh, we know, yeah.
He can suck in a whole bicycle with those chompers.
Dear Lord. Of course, this is Kind of Funny Gamescast. Each and every week, we get together to talk about the biggest topics in gaming. Patreon supporters at the silver membership or above get to watch the show live as we record it. And you can get the full post shows exclusive on Patreon. Of course, you can watch us weekly on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and on podcast services around the globe. Housekeeping for you. Shout out to our Patreon producers for this month: Mick at the Nanobiologist Abramson, Tyler Ross, Joy, aka Joseph O. Youssef, Trent Barry, Mizuki, Manbear Paradox, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, Alex J. Sandoval, Sancho West Gaming, James Hastings, Elliot, and Casey Kern. Today we're brought to you by Purple Mattress and Upstart, but I'll tell you about that later. For now, let's start with the show with what have we been playing? Now, Andy and Jeffy Grubb, before the show, you guys were talking a little bit about that game called Loop Hero. Andy, I'm going to start with you. Like, what's the deal with Loop Hero?
It's a game that I would have never thought I'd get into. It is I think the developers described it as wanting to make a 0-player game that is just sort of automated. And essentially what the gist of it is, it's a roguelite procedural game that starts up a new map every time you begin a new trek or expedition, and you go out and you fight enemies, and it's all automated. You are not controlling any of the combat. The only thing that's differentiating how well you do is the loot you pick up from the dead enemies, or the loot that you pick up by creating a world around you. It's like 10 games in one. It is RPG. It is world building kind of. You can also, after every run, go back to your home base. I'm just gonna let's compare everything to Hades right here, Jeff. All right.
Yeah, do it.
That's like the most recent thing on everybody's mind. We'll compare everything to Hades. In the way that Hades lets you go back to your home place and talk to NPCs, what Loop Hero does different, and I think better, is that it lets you go back home and build out your world a little bit more thought out. You're not just kind of unlocking a chest or talking to an NPC to get more dialogue. I have enough crafts to open to talk to a person who makes potions, and I could now build out this little campfire and make my home base. So it's also base building aspects are there as well. This game has a lot of things to it. It is very, very complicated, but it's so mindless that you can just kind of have it running in the background, like I have it running in the background right now. And I'm just playing it right now, and that's just it's just a very fun.
You're just playing these games at work,
stealing time. Yep.
Stealing time, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a really fun game, and I'm digging the hell out of it. Jeff, where are you at with this game?
Yeah, I'm at the point where I'm really glad that Blessing had you go first to explain it because it's still very difficult to explain what this game is. It's I think it's more important to like to talk about the energy it's bringing. If you ever got into a cookie clicker or you ever got into like Progress, that's the one that I think is like the best example. That old Flash game where it's just about filling up bars,
Yep.
and then the more bars you fill up, the faster you can fill up your bars. That's the game for Progress Quest. This is not exactly that. And this is not exactly like cookie clicker where you can just like leave it on the background and completely let it go. You do have to babysit it a little bit. And that just comes down to making sure that you are constantly getting the more powerful gear that you're getting, and then strategically placing the cards on the map to build out the world. And I feel like I just talked about like 3 different major gameplay mechanics in like 10
Right.
seconds. Let's focus on the card one though. I think that's where like most of the synergies are happening. That's what you're doing most of the time, because most of like the gear you're getting is infrequent. Once you get better gear, yeah, you'll put that on there. But most of the time, you're just kind of getting gear that's mostly the same or stuff you can ignore. So what you're mostly looking for is ways to combine the cards on the map to get certain synergies that unlock new abilities on the map. Like one of them is if you put the rock card in a 3x3 formation on this grid map, that rocks all turn into a mountain. And then that releases harpies on your loop where your character is actually fighting. And once he encounters harpies, he might get even better gear or unlock more resources and stuff like that. And then it just comes down to, basically where this intersects with the difficulty is you need to do a risk reward judgment at all times about, do I want to keep pushing forward and risk dying? And if I do, I only get to take back 30% of these resources to build up my base. Or do I just want to run home now when I get back to the start of the loop and take back 100% of my stuff, but not really have a chance to face the boss? And that's where I'm struggling right now, because I always just want to keep pushing. And it's very easy to get into that mindset where like, just keep pushing forward. Maybe I'll beat the boss this time. And then of course I lose and I only have 30% of my stuff. And that's causing the grind to take even longer.
I had a heartbreaker of a moment yesterday, Jeff, where again, you get that sort of Hades mindset, because I think that's just the thing that is easiest to compare since everybody has played it, I feel. In the Hades mindset where the RNG gifts you really awesome loot and you're like, oh my gosh, I have all of the perks that I really enjoy right now. I have all these abilities that are giving me back health and all these sorts of things. I had a build yesterday where a lot of the armor that I had regenerated a lot of my health. I had a helmet that regenerated 2.4 health per second, a shield that regenerated 5.8 health per second. Eventually added up to where I felt unstoppable, because not only are you regenerating health during fights, but you're regenerating health just when you're walking around the loop. And I felt amazing. And then I kind of didn't pay really close attention to one of the upcoming battles, and I have the game up, by the way, for audio listeners.
If you're watching the video right now, you're watching Andy play in his window.
And it really scared me at first, because you got really small, Andy, and then your video just went black for a second, and I was like, oh no, we lost him.
And I was like, Andy's up to something.
At first I thought he was just doing the thing where he's going to play the game. He's like, I'm just going to play it now. Bye.
One of the encounters that I had is similar to this one that I'm pointing at right now for video watchers, is it'll show you how many enemies there are, and there were 4 really tough enemies. And I had gotten to the point where I'm on loop level 9, which, the more you play, the more loops you go through, the tougher the enemies get, the better loot you get. And I had so many resources and I felt unbeatable. And then I got absolutely destroyed by 4 enemies. And when you die, you only get to take back 30% of your resources. And that sucked so bad, because I was like, fuck, I felt so great about this run. And I just didn't fully pay attention to the actual map. But I think it's really cool how the more that you unlock back at your home base. So right now, I'm just going to flee and go, and I'm going to keep 60% of my resources, because maybe I'm scared of that upcoming encounter. When you go back home and try to build out your home base, and I have an herbalist hut built out where you can, I don't know, some magic person makes magic potions for me for heals. A blacksmith will make extra armor pieces and stronger armor that I can then go out into the field with. The more you build out your home base, the more cards you unlock for the deck building portion of the game. So there's so many different elements to this that you don't really need to fully pay attention to it in order to get satisfaction out of the game. But I think it completely, makes the experience a lot better when you have a deck built out, knowing similar to in Hades, where the thing that I would go out with was I need to get the Athena deflection shield as my first, whatever they called those power-up upgrades.
The boons.
Yeah, the boons. There you go. The Athena deflection shield, the dash deflect, that's the thing I need first. So let me start off with this Athena thing. Similar to that, these cards all have sort of different, different attributes to them. And when you eventually go back into the field, then you can kind of build out the world the way you want. And when you get these environmental cards, you essentially build out the world to say, oh, if I put all these pieces of grass together, I keep getting health every time I start a new loop. It is just it's so addicting, and I did not expect to be grabbed by a game like this where shocker, there's no dash mechanic or a parry mechanic here. All right?
Oh my god, and you like this game?
I've been noticing that.
That's what you need in order to grab me, and somehow this game doesn't have it. And
I mean, technically, there's like no mechanics in this game. You know,
there
like,
are
no combat. Yeah, no combat.
There
mechanics.
There's no fighting mechanics, and that's again, I am usually not into strategy games.
Yeah,
like
if you're watching, right, like you see the turn-based battles sequence that it goes into. That is all automatic. That was the thing that caught me. I've only played about an hour or so of the game, and immediately early on, I was like, okay, I see what this is doing. You know, I talked about it a little bit on PS I Love You. That immediately, like, I got the sense of the cookie clicker aspect of it. It's idle. You are doing things here and there to affect what's going on screen, but for the most part, our role is to make the numbers go up and to have that ultimate feedback loop of higher numbers beget higher numbers. You are then getting better loop. You're then re-equipping that in order to do better in the game, and then having that back and forth, which is very satisfying. And immediately I was like, okay, I gotta slow down on this and not fall into this, because I could see myself getting super addicted. But for you guys that have played,
I was gonna say I made a massive mistake of starting this. When was daylight savings time? Saturday going into Sunday. Started this at 3 a.m. Huge mistake. Oh my god, it was 6:30 in the morning. I was like, I need a shower. Like, I need to get out of this chair. I am disgusting right now, because that was after a full night of Valorant. Oh, let me try this loop hero thing. Initially, I thought it was going to be because of the logo and the word loop, I thought it was a rhythm game. I had no idea.
The logo is meant to resemble Guitar Hero. It looks like
it looks exactly like the Guitar Hero
vibes.
Logo. Yeah, and so I thought it was going to be sort of a
rhythm game. Yeah,
I'm trying to think of the Zelda
like a Fruity
games.
Loops.
The Zelda game.
Cadence of Hyrule.
Cadence of Hyrule.
Yeah, Cadence of Hyrule type video game, and it is definitely not that. And I would have never thought I'd be into this video game at this point in my life, where, again, if you don't have a dash or a parry mechanic, good luck grabbing me. You know. There's the logo.
I'm like watching you play, and like so we talk about the numbers going up, the cookie clicker aspect, but I think that is all like a clever cover for what's really happening. It's teaching you its mechanics and its strategies. Like, you place the grove there at the top, and it's like this little wooded card, and he placed it at the top of what is almost like it's a mini loop, like a peninsula. And the reason he would place it there is because then if he gets blood roots, he could put that in the middle of that, and then the blood roots attack the guys, all the enemies, when they get below 15% health. And so it's like this really good offensive strategy. And the way to maximize that is to make sure that there's as many walkway tiles, what he's doing right there, as many walkway tiles as possible touching the blood roots, so you get the maximum advantage of that card. And it's like, okay, I'm like learning these strategic tricks as I play, and that will eventually become the entire game for you, especially as they unlock things like quests, and you have the ability to add traits to your character. These are things that are not unlocked at the beginning, but you learn these things slowly, and that will replace sort of just wanting the numbers to go up. But the numbers going up is the addictive part at the beginning that sort of gets you through the door, and it works very well.
Now, for both of you guys who are way further than me in this game, is there a story that comes up? Like, are you at all invested at all in like the story or narrative or characters or anything, or are you in it purely for the gameplay?
Go ahead, Jeff.
The story is kind of creepy and so it looks like a black void when you're looking at the gameplay here, and that is the story. Like, the world used to exist, and now it's a black void. And whenever you go out there and you go on the loop and you start placing things in the world, that's not like, oh, I found this thing and I'm placing it there. It's your memory remembering, oh, there used to be woods here. I think one like a really interesting point is when you meet the harpy from the mountains that I talked about earlier. The harpy comes down, and you have this conversation the first time, and you're like, hey, help us rebuild the world. And the harpy's like, that world was never our world. We just want to feed our young. We don't care. We need to kill you so I can feed my young. And it's like this really like creepy conversation. But it kind of gives you an idea of like, okay, there are like competing motivations even in this really dark, grim void that you exist in. And that's working for me.
And there's also one aspect to it that on this top left bar, whenever you add stuff to the map, this bottom bar will complete. And when it gets to the end, you fight the boss. And I didn't really notice that until I was late into my run and unfortunately couldn't go back because I'd already faced the boss once, got absolutely destroyed, realized, oh, I don't really want to do that anytime soon because I know I'm nowhere close to even chipping away a quarter of this dude's health. But yeah, essentially, the story aspects, maybe I should have played it, at 3 p.m. instead of 3 a.m. and I would have probably tried to grasp more of what the hell was going on. It's not necessarily what's keeping me going, but the cooler aspects are that when you do go, for me at least, the cooler aspects is where you go back to your home base and you have enough resources to open up the kitchen, and the NPC who is the cook is like, oh shit, I'm here now. What the hell? Like, and you're like, yeah, I remember existing, but now what the hell's happening? So you're also getting little story threads through the NPCs that you're bringing back into existence, because it's all sort of the I forget the name of the bad guy, but he's essentially this sort of extra dimensional being that has turned everything into nothing. The story aspects are not what's keeping me going. It is absolutely just seeing the numbers go up. I just turn into a mountain. Oh my gosh, here comes the harpy. Here comes the harpy. And it just gets addicting. When you figure out the strats and when you figure out what works for you, similar to a lot of different roguelites, going back out into the world, you feel like you are more prepared each and every time you go back out into the world. And I think that it feels just so satisfying to know that you are improving every time.
Yeah,
Greg Miller.
I agree.
Blessing Adeoye Jr., the future class of video games. What's up?
Right now, we're at March 17th. Tomorrow is going to be, as we're the time we're recording, this is March 17th.
Right.
Tomorrow, we're going to get the big Avengers update.
Yeah.
Where are you at with Avengers? Like, do you have an update for where you're at with that?
Yeah, my new episode of The Blessing Show is available right now on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. I'm not sure if you're aware
Greg.
of that show. It's this new show I came up with where I talk right to the camera, like video essay wise, and just say some stuff. Just talk for a while. Don't need anybody else on it. Don't need a podcast scripted.
Original.
It's a brand new idea I had. Yeah, exactly. And so I did it all about what Avengers needs to do to survive. And it's this weird thing where there's the push and pull of it where tomorrow, the day you'll get this, 6 a.m., youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, podcast services around the globe. Square Enix Presents is happening. But also before then, we're going to be getting the Avenger content, which of course is the new character, your free character, Hawkeye, the free DLC, Future Imperfect, which is his storyline picking up for where the Kate Bishop DLC left off. And then also the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X/S versions of the game being all super bright and pretty, and there's a bunch of other little things going on there, new villain sector, yada yada yada. And so there's this super excitement of getting new content for this game that I really enjoy playing, and then also this thing of like, are they going to fuck up the Square Enix Presents? Because like the whole video is like, all you have to do is talk to your audience. Just talk to your audience, give us a roadmap. It doesn't need dates, it just needs milestones. Give us something to look forward to. Give us a reason to turn this on. Because as much as I love Avengers, right? Like Kate Bishop, as I say in the video, I got 2 nights of play out of. Like I didn't feel the need to go back and grind Kate Bishop to level 150, which is the max of your power level in the game, because there's nothing to do at level 150. It's not like there's a raid. It's not like there's an armor set. It's not like there's something I'm going after that's just there. And even if there was an armor set, why would I do that when I don't feel like the need for it? I don't need that I'm being pushed that way.
What's the over-under for where you're at in terms of, do they nail it at the presentation? Do you think they come out and they say everything they need to say?
Well, see, the problem, it's interesting. It's a great question, Buzz. I think they know that this is the time to say something. I don't think that they would have. There's part of me when they announced it where I'm like, clearly they're just going to come out and say, also available. They're going through a whole bunch of different stuff, right? They have Life is Strange. They have a bunch of other stuff. And there's part of me that's going to have them come out and be like, also available today from Avengers. This is the Hawkeye stuff. Let's watch a trailer. And it's a trailer for Hawkeye stuff. And then it's, all right, cool. See you later. On to the next game. But the closer we've gotten, the more it's been like, no, they can't do that. They know they're smart. They know what people want. They're paying attention to their audience. They have to know. But this is, I feel like, the make or break moment where if they don't come out tomorrow and, you know, say, hey, this is what we're doing or where we're going, and this is the next thing you have to look forward to, then I think, yeah, you do get to go there and say, man, is this game dead? Is Square giving up on this game? But I don't see that happening. So I'm in this weird place with it right now where I'm super excited to play it, but I'm on that. It's it's Christmas Eve, where all that's tomorrow, and today you're just like bouncing around between other stuff, trying to play other things, and
it's Christmas Eve. You're like, what if Santa gets hit by a reindeer? You know?
Well, it's exactly. Either way, we get Hawkeye, which will be fun, right? Like Kate Bishop's story was fun. I really enjoy the episodic comic book content of Avengers, where it is I drop in for an hour and a half of missions that is progressing the story beyond the single player campaign. But yeah, like beyond that, it's always that thing of like, are they going to fuck that up? Are they going to make it so I'm not? I still have to talk about liking Avengers, but talk about the fact that there's nothing really to do in Avengers. I just want stuff to do. I want them to copy the Division. I want it to give me just the reason to rerun the old missions. Give me some quest chain there. Give me new content based on around the movies, like Marvel Heroes would have done. Do any of that kind of stuff. Like, give me a reason to turn this thing on and be excited. But even then, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, I'm gonna transition away from this if you got more Avengers questions.
Well, no, I was going to ask what your expectations are for, or do you have any expectations for the PS5 version? Because I know that's coming out tomorrow also, and that's
sure. I want load times.
Like
I want load times drastically reduced. Like they say, load times are better, but I mean, they're better right now running the PlayStation 4 version on PlayStation 5, but they're still noticeable. I think it is that thing as we all play more and more next gen content. The amount of times. Yeah, I go to pick up the phone like the old days to look at Twitter, and before I even get the Twitter app open, I've loaded into whatever, and it's like, oh shit, fuck, put this down. Whereas like Avengers, that is not the case. Avengers is, I select them, I load in from the main screen, I get through all the logos, I get into the game, I load up the mission. All that time I've been on Twitter doing something else. Like, that's what I want out of the PlayStation 5 version. Like, I want it to look prettier, obviously, and sharper, but I think the game is already pretty in spots. You don't have to worry about that part of it. I'm more, for me, it's not a version thing as much as it's a content thing. Like, I want to know where we're going and what's coming, and I don't need dates for it. I just want to know what is actually happening over there.
Do you have issues with time for matchmaking, Greg? Has that been?
No, because I don't play random matchmaking. If I'm jumping on, I'm jumping on with friends. So that's we party up and everybody's in there, and you're just ready to go.
Okay. Got it.
I know. I've the 1 or 2 times I've played, like when I was getting footage for the Blessing Show, right? Like I accidentally hit square, and to enable a matchmaking, and then I quickly hit it. But by the time I quickly hit it, somebody had already paired up with us. So even there, it wasn't that bad. But I'm far from an expert on that aspect of the game.
I really want to. I might re-download it just to see for myself, because I know if I ask you, Greg, what have the improvements been for next gen? You're not this person who like really gives a damn about the frame rate and the resolution and stuff like that. Those are things that I really harp on and notice. So I might try to download it just to see what has improved. Can I turn motion blur off? Are these battles? Because again, I didn't play since launch, and I was there for.
Well, even that, I mean, motion blur I think's been addressed since on what is already out there currently. And if you're talking about PlayStation 4 version on PlayStation 5, like that, I know has like 4K and performance, whatever you can do and tweak in the settings and stuff like that. So as you start getting into what this version is going to offer, like it's going to have the bells and whistles I think you expect from it, let alone the quality of life stuff they've already done, which is the thing you talk about of like. Where are they going and what are they doing? It's, the fact that I feel like they have done a good job of answering a lot of the littler things that were the sticking points early on, right? Like there is a ping system. There are visual indicators on your HUD now for if this person's being being attacked by PIM damage or cryo damage or whatever. Like they have for a long time. I didn't. Life updates. Yeah, exactly. I didn't for a long time. I didn't realize why they were trying to get me to do the challenge rooms again, the harm rooms again. And I finally went and did it. And I was like, oh, this is like a new tutorial for all the stuff they've added for how the combat's working. Even like there's a bunch. This is why I'm hopeful tomorrow that they'll deliver on the things people actually want, because it is that idea, right? Of like the foundation is strong. I feel like they fixed the foundation issues in terms of like. Obviously, not the comic books or like the, whether tweet the level 50 stuff, that crap. I'm talking about like, I feel like the foundational stuff that people are like, oh, this is just a stupid thing to do has been fixed to make it strong enough that you can build on it now and move beyond just like, if you were just going to put out, new heroes on a broken platform or a broken foundation, people would be like, why are you putting out new content when this is still fucked up? But they wouldn't fix that stuff and now they're over there.
Are those big battles still really framey? Because again, that was way early on. I've always wondered what the progress.
Not in my experience on PlayStation 5. Like you're talking about the big villain sectors or like taking on like the big walking mechs or whatever. No, but I mean, like again, it's like even then I haven't run a villain sector in months, right? Because when I transitioned over to just doing hives, that's what I did, and then coming back. Now I guess no. Well, I've run villain sectors, but I've been running them solo. I guess when I pop back in, because again, why should I go ask Timur to stop playing what he's playing to come over here and get Simon Cardy back on the horn or Andrew Goldfarb when it's like
you can put down Bloodborne for
you want to run the same exact thing we were running in September. It runs a bit better now, right? Like I feel like tomorrow is twofold, where it's going to be, hey, here of course is Hawkeye, a new character, new missions and stuff to go do and try out there, and then hopefully, knock on wood, at Square Enix Presents, it is also, hey, here's why you should keep playing and here's where we're going.
I hope so, because I'm kind of with Andy where I want to download it for the PS5 version to see how that plays and runs, because that is the thing that sounds exciting if it can do 60 FPS and have like a strong performance mode.
Yeah, here's what I got for you on that. Sorry, I was trying to pull it up. I'm talking native next gen version PlayStation 5 native, 60 frames per second checkerboard 4K. This is highest performance mode is 60 frames per second checkerboard 4K. 4K mode is native 4K. Cross-gen matchmaking, cross-gen save file import. The significantly faster load times, improved frame rate versus the PlayStation 4, higher resolution textures, improved heroics and armor destruction. This is versus PlayStation 4. Stochastic screen space reflections. Andy, I guess that gets you excited.
Oh yeah, that gets Andy excited right there.
Content aware sharpening, higher resolution translucency, improved ambient inclusion, improved
that volumetric fog, baby. You know,
anisotropic texturing, spatial audio, and haptic feedback. That's all PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I mean all that sounds like awesome stuff, and like there are reasons obviously for Marvel's Avengers why I bounced off that weren't technical stuff.
Sure.
In fact, most of the reasons I bounced off were not technical stuff. But you know that combined.
Did you finish the campaign? Did you finish the campaign?
Yeah. I beat the campaign.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I enjoyed that, and then I started playing a little bit of the multiplayer stuff, and I was like, no, I do not like this.
I wonder, Greg, would your relationship with this game be better if the multiplayer was completely separated from it and they like released it as a separate game later?
Oh my
just
God.
been the single player campaign, what would your relationship with this game have been like?
Who was I was playing with somebody and talking the other night, and I forget if it was Simon or somebody like that, but it was the idea that like, can you imagine if they would have done this like Ghost of Tsushima, where it was, hey, we're putting out this Avengers campaign, play as Kamala, yada yada, and then at the end you tease it and you're like, in the summer a multiplayer mode's coming or whatever, something like that, and have it roll out. I think that would have obviously been a better way to do it, because one of the problems, and I bring it up in the video, that like why Avengers gets, I mean, there's a number of reasons to ding it, but I think part of its perception problem is the fact that it's two different games and both are hampered by each other. Where if they would have just been like, Crystal Dynamics is making an Avengers game and it's single player. Imagine what we already have expanded without having to worry about multiplayer. And you'd be like, holy shit. Like, cause I enjoyed the single player quite a bit. And so I thought wow, that's great. So like you could really take that somewhere, but they had to make it so you could bring multiplayer people in and you could do this kind of thing. And it's like, he made fun of me so much before. Editing the video got Roger excited enough that he's like, can I get a code? Like, I want to play it. And so it's like, sure. And I got him the code. And it's that whole thing of like, dude, I would wait till Thursday so you can play it on PlayStation 5, because hopefully, knock on wood, it all works great. And it isn't a complete clusterfuck on that front, which we'll find out tomorrow. But also the fact, it's like, if you don't want to, great, but you should play the entire single player thing. And it's not exactly what I'm going to pull you into later on. You could jump around and do it before, but don't do that. It's like, it's such a weird messaging and such a weird mixed message for the thing of like, I can't believe on this, WandaVision, but then MCU rewatch me and Jen have been doing, like the amount of times we finish like Winter Soldier or something. I'm like, God, like I want to go play an Avengers game. And I'm like, I want to go play Marvel Heroes, where I go in there and it is just Diablo. Just grind out, get the gear, beat the thing, run the story again, yada, yada, yada.
Dozens of characters. Like the Winter Soldier would be in there. Yeah, you don't have to wait.
And that's the thing about Marvel Heroes, right? And this is what I always go back to of like, having friends with Anthony Gallegos who worked on the game. Like he was always like, people underestimate how hard it is to make heroes. And that was something they got really good at eventually at Gazillion, where they were doing the timed events where it was, hey, even though it sucked, right? There's a Fantastic Four movie, so there's a whole bunch of Fantastic Four content and stuff for you to go do. And, it seems like Avengers and Crystal are repeating the sins of the past, where when Marvel Heroes and Gazillion started up, they underestimated how hard it was to make heroes, and they didn't have that kind of content ready. So the fact that like you finish WandaVision and it's like, man, I can't jump into Avengers right now and grind out WandaVision. Like, what the fuck? How did that happen? How does that get so off track? And granted, COVID and delays and a million other things that have happened, obviously, behind the scenes and in front of everyone, too, for that. But there's excuses only take you so far. It's like, it's an interesting dilemma this game has.
This isn't just, adding a new fighter to the new Street Fighter game or whatever. Like, with these newer games, it just requires more than just the fighting aspects and the balancing aspects. But in a game like this, you need... What do these characters sound like when they all interact with each other? What do it's when Overwatch adds a new character, or when any of these games add a new character, there have to be so many other things than just, how can we make this character not way too OP, or how do we make them feel adequate?
And you figure that, and that I think you want to talk about, I think, underestimating it. I think again the writing is on the wall for everything they've talked about since launch, where it is the cloning labs, where it is the Omega threat missions. Like, again, it's always a joke, but remember, Fran accidentally played the cloning lab in September when they accidentally published it to the live servers for like one night by accident. Like, the fact that still isn't out speaks to how hard whatever they're doing with that thing is, and from a technical level. And I don't know if that's balance, if that's crashes, if that's whatever it is, but even that kind of thing of putting into your game something they've been planning for so long, they haven't been able to do. So hopefully by the time some people listen to this on the weekend, a lot of this is a moot point, and you get to go watch our reactions and see what they're saying and where they are. And like, as I sit here and I'm like, hopefully the PlayStation 5 version isn't a trash truck tomorrow. Like, for me with PlayStation, I still don't believe that they've made it easy enough for my PlayStation 4 save of Avengers to get over to PlayStation 5. I haven't heard anything about how they're doing that. Borderlands, of course, is a clunky as hell process. I almost deleted Avengers last night from my PS5 because I was like, PS5, on Thursday. And I was like, wait, is this going to be one of those motherfuckers where I got to turn on the PS4 version, make sure that's updated, upload that save through their internal thing, go back over here, going like, all right, just let it all ride, let it all ride.
I mean, the trophies are going to pop though, which is nice, right?
Dude, that's the other fucking. Why the fuck don't I have a Borderlands PS5 Platinum? Don't even get me started. And that's the
yeah.
Wait,
Don't
did
get
that not
started.
happen? Did the trophies not pop for Borderlands?
No, Borderlands PS5 trophies are still borked. Where it's like you turn. For me, I brought over my Platinum save from Borderlands PS4, turned on PS5, and it dinged like I forget 4 or 5, whatever, and then it didn't ding the rest. And they're just you can go to any of the Gearbox forums that for nerds like me that care, and they're all just like, what the fuck's going on? Like you can't even redo the things that you need to pop the trophies to get it on your save.
Oh shit. I did not realize it was that bad.
I hope that tomorrow, I'm very excited for tomorrow to turn this on, get to play new content. I do pray, sit here thinking about like uploading, save, and turning on just bing, 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 getting all my trophies again. You know what I mean? But then and I won't lie to you guys. I know that this is sick and fucked up. I know that there's something wrong with me. I also kind of fantasize that it doesn't happen, but I can get all the trophies. And I replay the campaign and I put it. You know how much I hated doing the 50 hives. I'm sitting here legitimately.
You struggled with the hives for so long.
You're a husk of a man.
I'm a monster. I just want to do it. You know what I mean?
You really are.
God, we need to find him help.
You're disgusting, dude.
Before you transfer off, I want to do 2 things. Number 1, Jeff Grubb, will you do us a favor and restart your Discord? Because you're clipping just a bit. It's gotten a little bit better, but I want to see if that just solves the issue altogether.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah.
If you're an audio-visual person or audio person, there it is. Andy, come down low. Come down low like me, Andy. Come down low like me, Andy. Blessing, I want you. Oh, see, you can go to 2 frames. Which frame are you in?
Which one is which? There it is. Okay.
There it is. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Cool.
okay,
Cool.
now,
While Jeff is figuring that out, Greg, can you tell me about Animal Crossing?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's one of those things I think it's funny to be in this. Oh, hold on, Jeff. I want you to give me your 7 years ago speech.
Yeah, the 7 years ago, our forefathers. I don't know the rest, but I can wing it.
This is great. That was all great. You sound great. You sound great. I'm sure it'll come back at some point.
What was happening?
It was like
clipping.
Every so often, it would sound like the mic couldn't keep up with you, but it wasn't. If it was like ruining the experience, we would have stopped you a long time ago.
Yeah, the audio and video was out of sync for me when I was watching you guys. So yeah, I think that cool. Yeah,
no,
update for Discord.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Don't worry about it. PC gaming, am I right, Andy?
No,
get up here, Andy.
Don't forget to sign into your TurboTax. Do your taxes.
I will not. I will not.
I'm doing that this Saturday.
I'll high five you, Greg.
Thank you, Barrett. That's why
Yeah.
I like keeping you around. You know what I mean? Animal Crossing, yeah. Like I love Animal Crossing. I think I've proven this time and time again. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of doubters out there, Greg.
I know a lot of people.
You proved
Yeah,
us
I didn't
wrong.
believe you for the longest time.
It's the weirdest thing right now where I feel like I'm in a relationship that's over, but I'm still going through the motions.
Oh yes.
Where it's like, guess what?
Tell
There's
me about
Mario
it, Greg.
content.
Tell
And
me
I'm like,
about
fuck, sure, turn it on, go buy it. And then I look around the island, I'm like, man, this place is fucked up, and I do not feel like fixing it. Bye. And then yesterday, I was like, oh, I got to get that St. Patrick's Day outfit. Got on there, got the St. Patrick's Day outfit. I was like, oof, see you later. Not playing any more of this. And I know
Later, suckers.
it'll be like so DC Universe Online, right? Where it'll be that one day I'm gonna have that wild bug. One day they're gonna do some update that I feel like I have to go be a part of, and I will be there for a long time. And I know this sounds crazy. It might be Halloween again, since my island is still decked out in Halloween stuff. Like, but I don't know. Like, I just right now, Jeff, I know you reviewed Animal Crossing. How are you checking in? Are you finding like a lot in this right now?
No, I had the same breakup. That's exactly how I described it too. It's a relationship, and when it's over, it's over, and it's this awkward breakup period where you have it over there, and like you feel guilty, and that guilt actually makes it harder to want to check in. And then the game doesn't help a lot with, like, I know it's not like as bad as some of the older games where they would be like they would really harp on you and everybody would be like, oh hey, you've been gone for this many days, but they do that a little bit, and they do it enough
I
to
haven't
where
seen you
it's
in a
like,
month.
yeah, it's like, okay, I get it,
Oh,
man. I know
gosh,
I already
it's-
feel bad enough.
Jeff,
and
it's
I
when
look around and it is
I'd go
messed
back
up.
home to visit Texas, and everybody like at church would just
Oh,
be
yeah.
like, where you been? I haven't seen you, stranger. It's like, fuck.
You get it. Yeah, I've dealt with guilt in my family as well. So yeah, I get what you're saying, and it's like I don't want to deal with that in my video games. Please.
Keep your guilt out of my video games.
It's
Yeah.
like having a Tamagotchi and then it dies after a while after not turning
No,
it on. You know,
I was gonna say it reminds,
You know?
it reminds me of doing Neopets back when I
Yeah.
was like 8 years old, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't feed it for the longest time, and I'd come back, and the thing would say that all my Neopets are starving, and I'm like, I'm tired of this, man.
Help me, bless.
I'm tired of going to the soup kitchen to
Please,
feed
I'm
y'all. I do
hungry,
not have
blessing.
enough credits or whatever to feed y'all. And
You just
so-
got to cut it off. You just got to end it. You got to like rip off the Band-Aid, and then like you do get the bug later, and then it's impossible to go back. I'm having a real hard. I'm thinking about just starting over, starting a fresh island, which is crazy. But
Oh my god!
if I ever
really?
go back, that's how I would do it. Yeah.
See, I
just
want
can't-
the history of it, but it's the guilt. It's the, oh man, I get excited for the announcements they make, and then I'm like, when am I ever gonna do this? Like all the Mario stuff dropped, and I'm still signing on to buy it all. And it's that thing of like, but am I ever really gonna do this? Am I ever really gonna go and put the question blocks and smash blocks and the mushrooms all over the island? Probably not, but I still want to. I want to, and I know one day I will, Andy. One day I'll fall in love again.
I believe you will. I believe you will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Speaking of abandoned lands, it's a very bad
Whoa.
segue. I've been playing
Yeah.
Fallout New Vegas because Fallout New Vegas
Ooh.
came to Xbox Game Pass because all the Bethesda games came to Xbox Game Pass. Not all of them, but a good amount of them did. And I'm having a fun time. I started over the weekend, and I want to say I'm about 5-ish hours in. And I'm a big fan of Fallout 3. I really enjoyed Fallout 4. I really liked Outer Worlds, and Fallout New Vegas I had passed by back in the day because I remember I had beaten Fallout 3. I'd played it a little bit late. I'd beaten it, and I was like, man, that was awesome. That might be one of my favorite games I ever played. And after that, I had looked at reviews because I heard of this other game, Fallout New Vegas, and I looked at reviews, and reviews for it weren't that great. And so I was like, oh, this seems like a worse Fallout 3, and so I had skipped it by. And as years have gone on, people have talked about Fallout New Vegas being the best one and all this stuff. And it coming to Game Pass has kind of been my excuse to finally go, okay, you know what? I'm gonna play New Vegas because I know how much I love Fallout and I know how much I love Outer Worlds. And playing New Vegas so far, I'm having a blast. It feels like I am returning to an alternate version of Fallout 3, right? Because obviously it's made from the same engine. It's made from the bones of Fallout 3, taking place in New Vegas, developed by Obsidian, so Bethesda, et cetera, et cetera. But like going back to it has been kind of fun because the same graphics that over a decade ago I would have been like, wow, I can't believe how good facial animation and all this shit looks. I'm looking back at it now and I'm like, wow, this game is ugly as fuck. These characters look terrible. This world looks terrible. But even with that, there have been moments where I've been impressed by how some of the environments look when you look at the way that they place small settlements and they place hills, and when you look at a vast view and the way that stuff kind of comes together, that's been enjoyable a bit. I've been enjoying the story so far. Like it's very much a Fallout-esque story where There's different factions. The factions got beef with each other. You're talking to different factions. It feels. I can see where a lot of the Outer Worlds specific influence comes from because they do the thing where you are upping your reputation with certain factions, right? And when you make one faction like you, a different faction might end up hating you because you are doing things in order to influence this war between factions, which is pretty fun. You know, I've been enjoying that. But yeah, overall, it's been such a fun, interesting thing to jump into, right? Like going into it a decade later, but then also going into it with the benefits of having an Xbox Series X, which means an SSD with fast load times, and being able to go from inside to outside and have it be almost a jump cut of, oh shit, this thing barely loaded. That's been a fun thing. And so I don't know if any of you guys have tried out any of the Bethesda stuff or FPS boost stuff that's been going on Game Pass, but it's been kind of a fun experience.
I have not on Xbox, but I did fire up Dishonored 1 on PC.
Hell yeah,
just
baby.
to sort of see how it looks. And then I was going to try out Dishonored 2, but I heard nobody likes that game, so I just didn't even want to give it a shot.
God,
I heard
why
that
do you
game's pretty
hurt
shit.
me when I show you nothing but love?
One thing that I did, I downloaded Wolfenstein because I would love to re-experience those games on PC and just see how they look and perform. But there's definitely a mod out there I need to get to unlock the full frame rate because they're locked at 60 and I don't know why. And I really need to find this mod that exists out there, and you just kind of do some hacking. Greg, I'm really good at hacking. I don't know if you know that.
Don't you have to put on that little Goku eye thing you wear all the time when you hack?
Oh, my scouter? Yeah. So what the thing is, like, I put on my scouter, and then I look at like what I have to change in the mainframe or whatever, and hopefully then unlock the unlimited frame rate because Wolfenstein games are just generally some of the prettier games that exist out there, and I loved both of them. I didn't really play Cyber, or what's it called?
Youngblood.
Youngblood.
You don't need
Youngblood.
You didn't play Cyberpunk either.
No, I was thinking of the VR one. What's the VR one?
Oh.
It's like Wolfenstein Cyber Shadow. No, that's not it.
Cyber Shadow is a different game.
Hold on,
It's
I'll
like
look it
Cyber
up.
Pilot.
Cyber
dogs in it?
Pilot.
Cyber Pilot is the one,
Cyberpilot.
yeah. But I definitely want to re-experience those games because I was talking with Bless and with Tim actually off camera, talking about how when a game can be experienced with a really, really high resolution and a high frame rate, it just feels like a brand new game. And I felt the same way. I talked about it on Games Daily this morning when I fired up BioShock Remastered, just to kind of, hey, how's this game looking? You know, I don't really remember this game from back in the day, and holy shit, it just looks like a goddamn new game, and it's really impressive. And I've been sort of experiencing this whole new world, but Blessing kind of let me know that Fallout New Vegas is not available on PC Game Pass.
It's such a bummer.
And I brought up the app, and I was like, no, I think you're wrong. Oh yeah, you're right. Why not?
Yeah,
What's the deal?
it's a huge bummer. I don't understand the reason. But yeah, it also doesn't have FPS boost, and like I get it. You can't give everything FPS boost off the bat, which is why they're kind of picking and choosing. But I did try out. Oh, is that the scouter noise?
Yeah. Hold on. Let's see.
Oh, tell me what my power level is right now.
It's bullshit. That's not your power level. It's bullshit.
Oh, I
It's
was
not
like,
a-
damn.
Damn,
I was
fuck. He
offended
just
on
went
your
right
behalf,
for you on
man.
that one.
It's bullshit
Jeez.
that you can't get New Vegas on PC. That's
Yeah.
my reading.
Well, I didn't personally. I mean, jokes aside, you know what I mean. I haven't paid too much attention to Game Pass for PC versus Xbox, right? Like I read the games on Games Daily, and I'm always like, oh, Game Pass best deal in gaming thing. But like Roger Pocorna here from Kind of Funny had posted about it of just like, hey, like it was after the Bethesda stuff, and then what was there was something else I thought they got announced, just a bunch of games. Outriders, right? And it was just like, hey, if you're not paying attention, this sucks. And I was like, fuck, there's a whole bunch of stuff missing that's not there. That there's no parody for.
The ideal thing would be to have cross save and like cross save capabilities from PC to Xbox. I'd like Windows to Xbox. I don't really understand why that's a huge deal and why it's not fully available. Probably just licensing issues. But
I'm sure for a game as old as something like Fallout New Vegas, it might be like a programming thing where just the way it reads on PC is entirely different from Xbox, and they wouldn't even been thinking about it at the time.
it's possible. But I guess even like newer titles, but like there are definitely newer titles that are not Xbox first parties. That why can't I play this on Xbox and then also open it up on my PC if I want to continue it on stream and then play out some off stream or whatever. So that's where some of the frustrations come from for sure. But yeah, we got a bunch of new EA titles coming to PC, which is really exciting.
Yeah,
very cool stuff.
Like I also booted up Dishonored Definitive Edition last night just to see what FPS boost looked like, because I wanted to see it in any game, and Dishonored I had played before, and so I could compare it to what I remember Dishonored being. And let me tell you, the thing is fucking smooth. Even the menus were smooth. I was shocked by how smooth that game ran. And so yeah, I'm now becoming a big fan of FPS boost. I hope they add it to way more of their games, because it's a really cool thing.
Were you a frame rate snob before all this, or were you always someone who's like, oh, I could live with 30 frames per second?
Dude, I never gave a fuck. I didn't start caring about frame rate until I got my PS5 and started experiencing performance mode. And yeah, I played Miles Morales and a bunch of other games in performance mode, and I was like, dude, I don't know if I could ever go back to having something that's under 60 frames per second.
Next gen ruined me. I need that. Yep. I need those frames.
I was
become
the same
a performance
way.
mode evangelist.
We would always talk with our friend Alfredo, who's this very, very good PC gamer for Achievement Hunter, and he, kind of made a name for himself in the competitive scene. And I would always say like, hey, come play Overwatch with us on PS4 or whatever. And he'd be like, dude, no way, I can't do that. And I'd be like, dude, get over yourself. And now I'm the same way. Like when we were going to play Predator the other day, I was like, Greg, I need to play on PC. Like I can't not. I've seen the light, I've seen how good it can be. Why would I want to be down on here on Earth with you peasants, right?
Yeah.
When I'm up here in the heavens with my really fast refresh rate and my mouse and keyboard, and I'm just deadly accurate, Greg. What's the point? What's the point?
I understand.
Of living?
No, I get it. No, it's the same way. Yeah. When I did the switch on Miles, what's the other thing look like? You're like, oh shit, I can never do this. Like this isn't how I want to play this game at all.
It's crazy how playing performance mode to me made the fidelity mode look ugly when I switched back to it. I was like, I can't believe, and not ugly as in like actually ugly, but just weird in comparison to performance mode when you slow down those frames and see it not run as smooth. I was shocked.
What about you, Jeff?
No, it happened at the beginning of last generation with PS4 and Xbox One, where I definitely was like aware of 60 frames per second, and I cared about it to a certain extent. And I like a lot of old Nintendo games were 60 frames per second, and I think I maybe grew up on that. So I'm like, that's definitely the way I leaned. But then PS4 and Xbox One came out, and I think both the hardware for both those systems was kind of trash, and it pushed me towards PC gaming specifically because of refresh rate and resolution and modding and stuff like that. But the big part was just the basic technology and just being able to run a game at what felt like a decent frame rate. So that snobbery came to me in like 2013 for sure.
I feel like I'm definitely like I was destined for it, because I've mentioned before that I think I just got it from my dad, where when my dad we'll go to like an uncle's house and the TV will be on, and my dad will immediately open up the settings and like the contrast and this and that. And I've absolutely become the same way, where I thought I was only going to care about playing games on PC for competitive shooters, but it's really just become any game where, well, I want the FOV slider. I want to select 1440p resolution. I really want to up the ambient occlusion and lower the screen space reflection, and then turn off anti-aliasing. Like I've become that person, and I never thought I'd come to this, Greg. I never thought I'd come to this.
Hey man,
Jeff, can you tell us about the Arcade 2020 handheld?
Yeah, just real quick. It honestly just came today, but it's a little
wow, that looks
look
awesome.
at that.
I got DK64
right now, Jeff's holding
there
the
for
handheld.
Oh hell yeah, you do.
DK64 on it.
Yeah, so. Like let's talk about it for real. Like everyone always gets mad at Soldier Boy for you're pirating games. No, China will just put this stuff on whatever and send it to you with a bunch of games on there. DK64 was pre-included. They don't care, and that's what honestly it's one of my favorite parts. It's like I'm gonna order this thing, and it's a pretty decent handheld from what I've used so far. It literally did just come today, but it's just got the one analog stick. It can do kind of up to Dreamcast. It seemed like Dreamcast was a little bit slow, not quite keeping up with the frame rate, but it's pretty solid otherwise. Everything else seems to run really well, and it's got like a nice build quality, and I'm digging it. But honestly, I'm just like, I get it, and I'm like, I wonder what games they actually included here. And of course, there's like 40 Game Boy Advance games, some stuff I've never heard of, but a lot of it's just licensed Nintendo stuff, and I'm like, okay, yeah, they're just totally just pirating that stuff. But it's cool. I'm like I'm in a weird place where I'm like, I'm really playing a lot of Switch still because it fits in well with my life, having the kids and not wanting to like take over the TV in the family room because someone's always doing something there, and I don't want to kind of kick people out. It's just not who I am. So yeah, lots of VeggieTales, almost nonstop VeggieTales.
Yeah.
And then and when my wife gets done watching VeggieTales, they put on like something else. But so I'm like trying to find other ways to play games handheld, and I'm like, oh, I'll kind of go back and play some stuff on 3DS, go play some stuff maybe on my old DS. But I'm like finding situations where I'm like, okay, I just kind of want to be able to, load a bunch of ROMs on something and play it that way. And so I'm starting to look around in this area of retro portable devices, and there's a lot of them now. And this one seems like a pretty solid one. But I actually already, even before this one got here, ordered another one, the Retroid. The Retroid
Are you a collector?
Pocket
Like, do you just love collecting a bunch of different retro handhelds?
I'm very specific against collecting, which is why I'm like okay with like ROMs and stuff. I just want to have the experience of playing stuff. Collecting has never made me happy, so I'm like, I'll just load them onto these little devices that are pretty cool and play them that way. But I am in a situation where there's a pandemic and I'm 37 years old. So I think I'm starting my midlife crisis. So I am looking for like nostalgia a little bit. I'm looking for stuff that like makes me feel warm and fuzzy. Like I would never wear a Nintendo 64 shirt before. And then in the last year, as I'm like, my hair's turning white, I'm like, I want a Nintendo 64 shirt and I want Mario and Advance Wars on a sweater or whatever. And so this is kind of part of that story. I'll see if I keep playing it or if I put it in a dresser drawer and then forget about it like after a week. But hopefully this is a good way to like go back and play some of those games that I've been itching to play.
Feel wise, does it feel like more toyish or more this is a piece of technology?
So this one feels closer to toyish, and it's plastic, and it definitely has that sub Wii U gamepad feel. And I think they do that as like, okay, so they can keep it cheap. And then they also sell metal versions of a lot of these things. Oh, get the metal one if you actually care about that. And it's like got a really nice body in it. I guess it stays cool or whatever. I don't know. I don't have any of the metal ones. I'm like, I'd rather just save the money. But I imagine that if you want something that does feel like a cool piece of technology, you would pay a little bit extra and get the metal versions. But my kids are going to get a hold of this, so I'm like, just give me the plastic thing. Just kind of, it's going to get beat up anyhow, so let's just do that instead. But it doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart either. So I guess it's not. I'm not saying it's bad. It just doesn't feel like a piece of technology like you described.
That's a dangerous game right there, Grubb, because I love the idea of just having all sorts of cool handhelds from all over the world that are made from different companies, and I love that shit. Like when it comes to the enthusiast side of collecting video game stuff, I mean, that's some of my Instagram discover feed of just like, oh, check out this really cool clear case random ass emulator or ROM player, and it's a handheld like that, or it's the Retroid that you earlier mentioned. I want to get into that, and I realized don't get into that, Andy.
You don't want all these handhelds littered behind you on your bed.
It's all these fucking toys.
Not at all. I mean, but like,
you sold me on the arcade thing you got there, the arcade 2020 handheld. Like it coming with DK64 already is like, ooh,
it's
I
already
could put card into that.
Yeah, it's like if like I'm also waiting for that. What's the big expensive one that's coming out that everyone wants? The Analog Pocket.
Playdate.
The Playdate's another one I'll probably end up getting, but the Analog Pocket I'm definitely going to get if I can pre-order it. But I just couldn't wait anymore, and I'm like, I just had this nostalgia thing I need to feed a little bit, so I'm probably going to like put Advance Wars on there and play through that again, and then kind of just take it from there. And it's just nice to have something that works really well with modern technology. So I'll just pop the SD card out, put the games on there, and then go about my life. And that's nice.
Jeff, I have more I want to talk to you about. But before I do,
please,
I want to tell you about our sponsor. This episode of Kinda Funny Gamescast is brought to you by Purple. As the world becomes increasingly uncomfortable, we're all looking for as much comfort as we can get. The one thing you can always count on is how comfortable your Purple mattress is. That's because Purple is comfort reinvented. Only Purple has the Grid, a stretchy gel material that's amazingly supportive for your back and your legs, while cushioning your shoulders, neck, and hips. I don't know how it does it, it's just fantastic. Because of how it's designed, the Grid doesn't trap air. Air actually circulates and flows through it, so it'll never overheat. The Grid bounces back as we move and shift, unlike memory foam, which remembers everything. That's why memory foam has craters and divots. Kinda Funny loves Purple mattress. Joey Noel sleeps like a baby on the one she has. She says it's nice and soft. Right now, you can try your Purple mattress risk-free with free shippings and returns. Financing is available too. Purple really is comfort for an uncomfortable world. Right now, you'll get 10% off any order of $200 or more. Go to purple.com/kindafunny10 and use promo code kindafunny10. That's purple.com/kindafunny10. Promo code kindafunny10 for 10% off any order of $200 or more. Purple.com/kindafunny10. Promo code kindafunny10. Terms apply. We're also brought to you by Upstart. If you have multiple credit cards, you know that tracking multiple balances, due dates, and website logins can be stressful. Upstart makes things simple with one monthly payment in one place. Upstart is the fast and easy way to get a personal loan to pay off debt all online. Whether it's paying off credit cards, consolidating high interest debt, or funding personal expenses, over 500,000 people have used Upstart to get a simple fixed monthly payment. Upstart finds smarter rates with trusted partners because they assess more than just your credit score. With a 5-minute online rate check, you can see your rate upfront for loans from $1,000 to $50,000. You can get approved the same day and can receive funds as fast as one business day. If debt is taking over your life, it's time to get a fresh start with Upstart. Find out how low your Upstart rate monthly payments can be today when you go to upstart.com/kindafunny. That's upstart.com/kindafunny. Don't forget to use our URL to let them know that we sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Go to upstart.com/kindafunny. And we're back with topic of the show. Jeff Grubb, you're here for a reason. You're here because you're the pioneer of the Summer Games Mess. Can you, for those who don't know, catch us up on what the Summer Games Mess is, what it has been, and what it's going to be this year?
Yeah, so when E3 exploded in 2020 and became a shell of its former self, some pretenders tried to step in and wrangle stuff together, and it just wasn't working for them because they're
shots fired at Jeff Keighley, huh?
Well, I mean, his problem is he's a professional, and I'm not. I could just go on there and put stuff on a list on Google Keep, and it's a lot simpler, especially if you don't have to ask anyone for permission. Jeff Keighley's like, hey, can I please include you in this thing? And some people might say no, and I just don't ask. And so it's very easy to just throw it on a list. I'm a reporter. I'm just reporting facts here. Here's where all the stuff is. It's a nice a freedom that I have that he doesn't. But it's also something I found people were pretty hungry for. They were feeling lost when E3 just wasn't what it always was, and when they were looking for a place like a central location to find out what's happening, when's it coming up, and sometimes like what's stuff that like we know is coming and we don't have the exact date. Is this a good place to find that out? I was able to provide some of that information as well, and it turned into a pretty fun thing. And now it's just something I'm having fun kind of keeping up with this year as well, because it seems like we're going to have something similar to last year, but maybe not quite as bad.
Yeah, following it last year was a very fun thing, right? Because you said it yourself. You know, you had the professionals doing it, the professionals being people like Jeff Keighley, and you saw some outlets having their own thing, right? Like IGN had the Summer of Gaming. You saw similar things like that, breaking down what the calendar year was going to look like in terms of big video game announcements. And from last year, we got big things like the Ubisoft Forwards, and even though that wasn't necessarily part of Summer Games Fest, that was a part of the big activities. We got New Game Plus Expo, we got the Indie Showcase, and all this different stuff. Barrett, I linked you, or I guess you found it on Twitter, right? The latest graphic for what the current Summer Games Mess looks like this year. If you're able to bring that up. Oh, you got it. Cool.
Don't
it looks
ever
like this,
doubt
right?
me, Blessing. Don't ever doubt me.
I keep forgetting you're not
Blessing,
Kevin.
stop
Barrett.
doubting Barrett.
I'm not Kevin, all right?
You're not
Stop
Kevin.
doubting him.
You're
Stop
already
doubting
on it. It goes like this, right? March 13th, we're looking at the Paradox Insider / Game Dev Direct. March 17th, we got Dying Light 2 Dev Update. March 18th, we got Square
Did
Enix
anybody watch that
Presents.
today? What was the update?
They were just like, we're going to release it in 2021 still, we promise, basically. We like,
Okay.
they
Wait,
read a bunch of, they read a bunch of mean tweets saying, hey, a-hole, where's this thing? That sort of, like the Conan O'Brien thing or the Jimmy,
Sure.
I can't remember, Jimmy Kimmel. And then at the end, it was like, we hear you. And they all stood in line and like, hey, it's really hard. We're trying, but it's still going to come out in 2021, the end.
Do any of us
so-
believe that? That Dying Light 2 is coming out this
Pizza
year.
Pizza bet time right here.
Yeah,
pizza
that's a
bet time
pizza
right
bet.
here.
Someone has to believe it for there to be a pizza bet.
Yeah,
I don't
Pizza
believe it.
bet.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all.
I believe it. I believe it.
All right, Andy, you
All
want
right, we're
pizza?
doing it.
If
a lot
I
of pizza,
win,
Andy.
lots of pizza for me.
And I'm gonna say, side note, Andy, did you see us eating Pasquale's on stream earlier today? Ooh, boy, was it a good
No,
one.
I didn't. You had some good
Oh,
pasta.
so
I got a
good.
couple
Yeah.
tweets about it.
You had all
Good,
of the other
good.
pizza in SF. Why not Pasquale?
Why not just
Try
try
them all.
this one
Just
too?
try it.
Listen, you've eaten everywhere else. Just fucking try this too.
So continue with what we got, right? March 18th, tomorrow, we're getting the Square Enix Presents Showcase. The Balan Wonderworld show is what you have here, which I assume is part of the Square Enix Showcase.
Yes. Balan Wonder, they keep fucking promoting that, Jeff. Why? Stop saying that's going to be part of Square Enix Presents. You're telling us about a new Life is Strange. Talk about that.
It's awesome. March 25th, we're getting the Future Game Show. March 25th, the Future Game Show. March 26th, a low-key Xbox show. #Hype is a sin. March 31st, Nintendo executes Mario. April 10th, you have here AOE, which I got questions about.
That's Age of Empires 4. They actually confirmed that today. So yeah, that's going to be a reveal for Age of Empires 4.
Nice. And then we got more, including here June 30th. We're celebrating Tim's birthday, which is a
That's nice.
beautiful
That was a
thing
nice
to
thing to
include. But yeah, it's basically you have like a messy version of what we can look forward to in this year, for this year in announcements. My question to y'all for discussion is, what are your expectations for this year in terms of E3? How this year's announcements are going to go compared, or in terms of E3 and how this year's announcements are going to go compared to last year's, because last year very much felt like hey, let's set this all up, let's figure this out. We just entered a pandemic. Companies are scattering to put together their own showcases. What are your broad expectations this year for what that looks like?
I think it's going to be as segmented and unspecial as last year, if that's a word. Is that a word, unspecial? Barrett, look up unspecial for me. Okay,
Ordinary. I think unspecial would be ordinary.
I'm looking it up for you.
And what I mean by that is, when we have normal E3, which seems like it's all but gone now, it is a long 2 days of stuff, but it feels really, really hype. And because you're going to get a shitload of announcements, and you maybe care about 5 to 7 of them. And those are the ones that really get you excited and say, God damn, I love video games. This is my favorite time of the year. This is Christmas. I feel like this is going to be
Definitely
I feel like this is going to be,
by the way.
Wow.
unspecial. Perfect.
Shit.
Fantastic.
I'm just kidding.
You're not Kevin.
I believe you.
Shit. You're not unspecial. You're unspecial, Baron.
God damn.
So is Kevin, though. But with last year's E3, and I feel like the same thing with this year, I don't think that there are really. I'm worried that the lessons that they may have been learning aren't fully going to be realized, because it's still going to be spread apart, and you're going to get the New Game Plus Expo. Oh, we already had that. I know that was like last month or whatever.
There'll be another one. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank God. But I think it's going to be like last year. Very segmented, and this 1 hour event might have one thing you're really excited about. Otherwise, it's going to feel like, why did we do this? And there's going to be another event that's an hour and a half long that you're stoked about 2 things in there. Otherwise, you're going to think, damn, this felt like a waste. And I think just spreading it out makes it feel a lot less exciting than having it really, really, compact in 2 days. I think it just feels less. There's less of that the wow factor there, because
it wore on too long in 2020.
Yeah.
Right. That's I think what we all said and felt. Right. I mean, Jeff, you obviously had your mess then. That's when it came down. But I'm not wrong about that, right, Jeff?
Oh no, yeah. I mean, it should be a little bit better this year, but it's going to expand as well. There's 2 things here. The normal June timeframe for when we should expect E3, there probably will be more condensed into that, what we consider E3 week. Will they actually be part of the official E3? Will they pay money to the ESA? That seems very unlikely. That seems like that's not going to happen probably across the board. I don't know, maybe a few exceptions. I guess I don't necessarily know what Nintendo would do. Maybe Nintendo will get crazy and do that, but it just seems like they're the ones that have to do it the least. So why would they? But there's already, I'm already hearing that stuff's moving from June to July. There's already companies that are delaying their stuff from June to July because they have more time. If you have more time, you're going to take more time. If you don't have to crunch to get a demo ready for 1 week, instead it's like, well, let's just take a little bit more time and get the trailer look a little bit better for this event, and we'll just put that event in July instead, because we can. No one's going to stop us. why wouldn't you? And it turns out, yes, some companies are already doing that. So I think I think it'll be a little bit more condensed. There'll be a little bit more happening in that normal June timeframe. At the same time, though, continue to expect things to elongate unnaturally when compared to traditional E3.
Jeff, what is your view on what E3 specifically looks like this year? Like, do you think E3 this year is just, like it pales in terms of what it means to, in comparison to earlier E3s? And do you think we eventually snap back to E3 eventually?
I'm less certain of that than ever. I think that the future of E3 is a big part of this is their competency within the ESA to put together a show that people want to do. Everyone is putting together their own, like Square Enix Presents is a new branded show that they're doing. Bandai Namco seems like they're starting their own thing as well. These companies are spinning up not just like brands, but like teams to work on these things, to do Nintendo Direct style events. And then when E3 tries to come back as a physical event, those companies are going to have to decide, do we want to spend a lot of money on this physical E3, or do we just want to keep this team together and have them focus on the thing they did last year and continue to do it virtually, which seems to work just fine for the gaming audience that we're trying to reach. So I am very skeptical that E3 and the ESA are going to be able to create a convincing and compelling argument to bring many of those companies back, especially when they are charging so much to participate. It's a very expensive thing. Just getting a booth is expensive. Getting internet's expensive. A lot of people are aware of this. So, so like when it comes to like what it looks like this year, it's probably going to be a lot like last year. But I think people are going to, first of all, have be able to set their expectation levels a little bit better. We know what to expect, so that helps. And then companies also know how to do this a little bit better. So I think just a lot of Nintendo Direct style things and some of them might be disappointing. Some of them might be exciting. A lot of it's going to come down to the fact that companies like Microsoft and Sony have already announced a lot of games, so they're probably not going to have too much more to talk about when it gets to this summer. There'll be updates on stuff we already know about, and that is inherently less exciting, I think, for a lot of people. But a lot of it's just going to come down to pacing and making sure that we are excited about stuff that is coming out maybe this year, and maybe if Starfield really does get announced and stuff like that, making that like a really big deal, making it feel like an important thing. And if they can pull that off, it'd be like, okay, that's what I want from E3, and that's kind of all I'm expecting. And if they go beyond that, then great. But I'm not holding my breath.
Who do you guys think actually partners with E3 this year? Because that's been the huge question for me, because we've gotten reports about it being six figures if you want to participate in the presentation, right? They're doing it. The reports have been that they're doing it in a non-traditional way, where they're going to do E3 digitally over the course of 2 days, as opposed to what we've gotten in previous years because of COVID and restrictions and all this stuff. With that being the case, and with what we've gotten last year with different companies doing their own thing and everything that Jeff just talked about, do we see Nintendo? Do we see Ubisoft? Do we see EA partner with E3 and actually show up in the presentations they're doing? And if not, then who do we see there?
Yeah,
it's a great question.
Real quick, let me just say the ones that I know aren't. Like Microsoft's probably not going to. Bethesda's not going to. EA and Activision haven't for the last several years, so they're not going to. Sony hasn't for the last several years, so why would they? There's a lot that I think we know are not going to. And it's a very short list of companies that might. But I don't know, Greg, if you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
No, I mean, I think it's a great question. I think it is, what is the ESA doing and what are they charging? You bring up that question. That's the $1 million literally question, where it is the whole thing of last year. I think it was eye-opening to so many different publishers of, oh man, we really don't need them. We don't need this window. It is this age where you can put together a video, put it online, and everybody finds out about it that way. And I think as the lesson was, as we went on, the longer you waited to do it into the summer, the less eyes were on you, or at least less energy was there. Because in the beginning, we all came out that first month and were so excited to be reacting to everything. And then by the end there, we knew that, okay, this thing isn't going to perform. It's just a bunch of third-party games. That's fine, but it's just not something we need to get super juiced about, let alone it was just so complicated, let alone the people who were triple dipping and were in the PC Gamer presentation and also in this presentation and also in this presentation. There were so many games you saw over and over again. So I think, I would hope the ESA is smart enough that they're not charging an arm and a leg to be part of it. And then I think you'd see hopefully more of those AA publishers trying to get a part of it, right? See, I'd hope that you'd see them partner with the Guerrilla Collective or something like that to get a bunch of indies together to have a presentation to go out and do it that way. I think that, I've said it a million times, obviously, but that was my hope last year, is that was what Jeff would have done, was going to be, all right, cool, let's rally and I'll give you 2 days of, 9 to 5 programming that is all of these different game companies coming out to show their wares. And Jeff instead did some of his own reveals and stuff, obviously, but then also was more just a place to house the information and keep you included on what was going on. And so this year I'd hope that's happening. I would hope if he's not doing it, then the ESA is doing it. But you bring up this point of like, does an Xbox, does a PlayStation, does Nintendo need them? No, of course not. They know they don't need them, but what about previous relationships, and what about what the ESA is, and like, is there a conversation to be had about that and what that means for E3 going forward, and trying to keep it next year if it can be in person? Who knows?
The question that I have for y'all, and just throw this out there, is that like, would the industry be better straight up from now on just not having E3, especially like hearing the stories about Cyberpunk and how they did a lot of crunch to have a demo come out specifically for E3 a few years ago, and then to see like how that actually that game actually launched, and like what the mindset of that studio was like. Hearing what Jeff was saying of like, there are some people that are pushing from June to July because they have more time and stuff. Like, would our industry be better and actually grow if we just didn't have an E3 type of an event anymore?
I think there's balance to it. Like I think the point of Cyberpunk and how much they had a crunch on demo, and what you hear about other studios and how much work it takes to put together a demo for press, there is an added pressure when it comes to E3 season and being prepared for E3 season, and then also being the publisher having to pay to participate in E3 season, that would add to probably a lot of benefits for companies being like, we're just not going to participate in E3 season. But I think Andy makes a very good point of having something that people can look forward to that is compact, that doesn't give us as audience fatigue over the course of a year, is also very nice to have, and also I think is a very effective way to market. And so I could see a case where Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest, I keep wanting to call it same Game Mess, Summer Game Fest turns into the quote unquote new E3, where it's compact enough, but it still gives publishers breathing room to be able to be like, cool, we don't want to rush a demo for the first week of summer, and so we are going to have it be maybe the last week of June, or we're going to do our presentation, but we're going to instead of it being just this first week of June thing, maybe Summer Games Fest turns it into okay, cool, we're gonna do
early
3
fall
weeks
fest.
Early fall fest. We're gonna do 3 weeks, 1 week in June, 1 week in August, 1 week in July, and do it that way. So it feels compact, but it also gives publishers the freedom to kind of roam around and be able to put stuff out there when they're ready. I think there has to be alternatives and shifts from E3, because I do think getting rid of E3, or at least E3 not being the main event that it has been over the last couple decades, to Barrett's point, can lead to hopefully some benefits.
Yeah, I think it's going to become like South by Southwest, where there is official proper South by Southwest in Austin, but for weeks before and weeks after, there are tons of things that are not really related to it, but hey, we're also a band here performing here in Austin, and I think we're just going to continue to see stuff like this. I think quarantine totally changed the industry, and we are not going to have the single weekend or week of events or whatever. I think it is going to be spread out just like it has been since last year or whatever. I think we continue to see that sort of layout in terms of releasing and not necessarily crunching, right? Like I think developers are gonna become a lot smarter, and publishers are hopefully gonna become a lot smarter. Maybe that's just me, being a little bit too optimistic, but I think they realize. I think Cyberpunk was sort of a big moment in the industry to see like, oh shit, we definitely shouldn't do what they did, because we don't want to become the joke that they became. We don't want to be that punchline.
Yeah. Things are the industry's a blob. It'll fill in any nook and cranny you provide for it. So if it starts shifting to a different model, They will find ways to fit crunch into that model as well. That's sort of inevitable. But it could be better. I mean, I guess a better world is possible. My guess though is if the ESA cannot make E3 work, one of these other entities, whether it's Jeff Keighley or just like maybe actually Gamescom or something like that, they step in and they take that week and they claim it as their own, and they, you know, maybe not doing the LACC, but maybe they'll move it to like Las Vegas or something, somewhere cheaper or something like that, and turn it into more of a fan thing. But you know, try to keep the spirit alive. Someone will try to do something with it in during that time frame. So something continue to exist, but I just it's going to continue to morph and shift and change, and I don't necessarily think that like it's going to be Nintendo involved in the same way that they are when it's the ESA doing it. I think Nintendo will just be like, okay, well, we're out, we're going to do our own thing, and it'll have to be much more fan focused.
Yeah, I think the thing about it all is, to Barrett's initial question here of like, do we need E3? Does the industry need E3? Like, E3, I think, is such a product of a bygone era where, I mean, if you want to go all the way back, right, it was very much like, here are the hottest games. You should order them for your stores, right? But then what it really became was, here are the hottest games to get on your Christmas list, but also to get into USA Today. Like, that was always the goal of E3. E3 was to get mainstream coverage of your video games. And I think that is still, you know, you watch the nightly news, you don't see them talking about every video game or anything to that effect, but we've come so far in that way where you can have a conversation on mainstream media about video games, and it continues to change and continues to evolve. And you look at something like Animal Crossing that, granted, is very specific to Nintendo and is very first party and is very huge, but you are seeing the need for that fall away, where PlayStation doesn't need to have an E3 for the PlayStation 5, right? PlayStation 5 is going to be news in Wired and in all these weird Bloomberg articles and all the weird things they want to put it in, right? And the same for Xbox and their next system. And so the desire for Bandai Namco to try to be at an E3 is to try to be in that same second paragraph that at the PlayStation presentation this happened. But does that actually move units for what they're going on? Probably not. If you want to look at something like Capcom, like a Resident Evil is a Resident Evil, and I don't think it necessarily needs the pop of an E3 to get covered in certain places. And so that's the push and pull of all this thing. But even when you say mainstream media, it's like, what the fuck does that even mean anymore? Who is watching the news necessarily to get their information? You're getting it on Twitter, you're getting it on YouTube, you're getting it on Facebook, you're getting it through a million different fragmented sites, and that's what everybody's finding. And so, you know, when we talk about, I hope somebody does condense it. I hope, you know, Keighley does it. I hope the ESA gets it. Like, you're going to run back into the exact same problem of trying to take an antiquated system and put in modern parts, because it is what you're talking about of like, okay, well, our biggest game isn't going to be ready for this thing like we said it was, so we'll just push it out and do it on our own. And so inevitably, it's going to keep expanding, like you're talking about, filling in these nooks and crannies, because when it isn't, for, you know, ESA, you had to be an ESA member. There was this thing, it was you're contributing to it and you're getting dedicated space and you're paying more for booth and yada, yada, yada. With all of those benefits gone, then it is just like, all right, well, I'm still going to be able to make a pop out of this later on. And then if you're in NIS or somebody, like you team up with somebody else and you have an event that brings you and Sega and all these other people together, right, to do something different and big and bring in that very specific audience, but the actual audience that's going to buy your games.
Yep. Jeff, is there anything you're looking forward to most from Jeff's Summer Games mess?
I think I'm just it's not on the list yet. I still want to see what Nintendo's going to do. I imagine they're going to have something right there in June. I'm always a big Nintendo fan, so I'm looking forward to that. And just kind of speaking of Nintendo, I do want to see how they handle pulling the stuff off the store from the Mario anniversary. Are they just going to kind of do that and then the next day say nothing, or are they going to have something in place to like replace that value? Because Super Mario 35 is something that is it's part of your subscription when you subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online, and you could play it that way. And then all of a sudden the next day it's gone. It feels like, you know, that they're worried about that value perception, and I don't think most people are going to be like, oh, I can't play that game anymore. Why would I pay $20 a year for this thing? I'm not going to do that anymore. Most people probably will, but Nintendo's going to still be thinking about that value. And so I'm very much looking forward to seeing how they try to message that transition and whether or not they have anything to replace it. And then yeah, I think that I just want to see how Microsoft and Bethesda work together. I think that they will be two separate events, but they'll probably be a doubleheader back to back. And if Microsoft goes first, and they talk a lot about Halo, and that's really coming later this year, and then Bethesda really does have Starfield, and if that can come later this year, that'd be a pretty big 1-2 punch that I would be very excited about. So yeah, that's my hope.
Now, Jeff, of course, I saw you getting put onto what was a Reset Era and then having to argue your own point again today. Blessing and I have an arch villain, and his name is John BX32.
John fucking BX32.
And he hangs out in the PS I Love You chat live. He's hanging out right now in the Gamescast thing. And every day for the last 4 years, this guy's been saying Starfield 2021 is happening. You're all wrong. What are the odds you think Starfield actually drops this year?
The odds that it drops this year and actually releases, I would say, are 75%. I think the odds that it gets revealed are really high. I think it's like
that I believe. I buy for sure.
Yes.
But I just see it getting delayed out of this year because especially now that they're under Xbox's umbrella of like, well, you have Halo and we don't want we want this to be perfect.
Yeah, that easily could happen, and I mean, it just you got to think about like what their motivations would be if the game is ready to go, and they want to have a 1-2 punch of Halo and Starfield. Yeah, sure, but maybe they want to like Halo in the holidays, and then you continue to bring on subscribers by releasing Starfield in early 2022. I could totally see that, but the Fallout 4 rollout worked really well. I don't know if they would want to deviate from. I don't know if they would want to deviate from that. It just was such a well thought out plan.
It's a great way to do it.
Reveal it in June, release it in November. It's just nothing but hype up until then. It worked really well.
If you do a 60-minute long event in June, that is all Starfield, that is all the details we want, introducing us to characters, introducing us to the world, introducing us to mechanics and what Starfield is. As Bethesda, you then own the rest of the year, like in terms of conversation and all that stuff. Like you then become the biggest game, just like they did with Fallout 4.
Wild.
That would be a great way to do it, but I don't believe it. I just
keep in mind too, John BX32 and everybody watching. This is legitimately once again the Persona 5 argument of release date, where even if they come out in the summer and they're like, guess what, Starfield's coming this year. Don't fucking be doing victory laps around me. I want to see you playing it come December 31st, 2021. That's when we'll see who won this fucking argument.
And honestly,
I don't.
Yes.
I never saw it come in 2021, and now with quarantine, I just really don't see it coming in 2021.
On top of it,
Go ahead, Barrett.
I think
I was just thinking of like what if like internally like now their plans have flipped because people have been saying like, oh, they got Halo in the fall, so like what's the point of really putting out Starfield this fall? But what if it's the opposite internally where they're like, oh, well, now we have Starfield. Now we can give more time for Halo and maybe put Halo out in the spring.
They'll do whatever they need to with Halo, but like, can you imagine the fucking shit they would have to sit down and eat if they delay Halo again?
Oh yeah,
like Starfield hasn't been teased or given a date or whatever, right? So you're not delaying that if you said, "Hey, fucking please, Todd, ride the bench for a few more months. Let us get Master Chief out."
But again, I think delaying Halo again would be way less damaging than releasing Halo and not having it.
Also true. Yeah, no, I mean, if Halo's not ready, that's for sure.
Because this is really their last chance with Halo, I think.
I think the reason I am more confident, the reason I would say 75% it comes out this year is I do think that they want to have multiple big games this holiday, and I think you buy Bethesda, I mean, you spend all that money, let's see a return on that investment really quick. And I think that would be a big part of it. But they're just not like they've announced a lot of their games. And those games, when I'm talking about Microsoft, has announced a lot of their games. And a lot of those games are still years away. And so when they go to have their E3 show this year, Microsoft, it's going to be stuff that we're really familiar with. It's going to be a lot of Halo, maybe some other stuff, maybe Forza Horizon 5 still. I think I'm pretty confident that's probably going to happen as well.
I hope
but then
so.
What else? And then I think it's very possible, but I think that show right there is probably pretty disappointing for a lot of people, especially after the build up of like, oh, Perfect Dark was released or revealed and all this other stuff, and they're just not going to have anything like that. So then to back that up with Bethesda coming up and saying, here is Starfield and it really is coming, and that's going to fill out the rest of your year. And if it does become the talk of the rest of the year, that really helps Microsoft. It really benefits their communication, and I think they wouldn't want to avoid that. I think they would want to embrace it. So that's why I'm really confident.
Man, they better knock it out of the park with Starfield.
Hell yeah.
Oh, they have to.
Yeah.
I am in Cyberpunk territory where I'm like, I definitely am overhyped for this game for no reason because we've not gotten shit about it. We've not heard anything, seen anything. But coming off of Fallout 4, which I stand by is a great game, which I know most people
Same.
think is a great game, but I love
I
Fallout
agree.
4. The reception of Fallout 4 wasn't the reception of Skyrim or the reception of Fallout 3, right? And for them, especially coming off of Fallout 76, it's like I'm sure they're like, yo, we gotta fucking reclaim that crown.
This shit better look good, man.
That shit better look good. That shit better have a cool world.
That's one reason why I just never got into Bethesda games. I just always thought they were the ugliest games. Sure. And I think a lot of it is color palette. I think a lot of it is Fallout. The Fallout games being very just
playing New Vegas.
Desaturated
that color palette is fucking just straight
brown.
up.
Yeah,
Fallout
3
It
is
was
green. Fallout New Vegas is brown, and
Brown.
Fallout 4 was
Yep.
like, oh, there's more than 2 colors
Sun.
here. Cool.
Green and blue.
Yeah,
sunshine.
you'd be inside environments and like, God, the lighting. This doesn't look next gen, and I guess it makes sense since you started it so long ago, and that's why we're able to play it so soon because you were releasing it this year, and that's fucking awesome for us. But also, this tech seems kind of outdated, and so yeah, I really hope Starfield is the thing that gets me into a Bethesda game really hard. Although the H Bomber Guy video essay that you recommended, Jeff Grubb, on New Vegas
Good
was
video.
very, very good. Very good
It's a
video.
smart boy.
I gotta check that out.
Mhm.
The thing I'll say for a quick note for what I'm looking forward to from the Summer Games Mess, which I don't think is on there, but a thing I anticipate in terms of events, that Nintendo Switch Pro has to get its own event. It has to get its own either direct or something, right? Presentation, because for the news that we've gotten over the last couple of weeks of reports that they're looking to make more money off this next upcoming fiscal year, over the more than they made this last fiscal year where they had such success with Animal Crossing. That speaks to what we've heard previously about them having a killer lineup to go alongside a Switch Pro, and so I think that would speak to Breath of the Wild 2 and maybe a new Mario. Like I don't know what all would fit that quality, but that has to be something big, right? That has to be something that they're able to come out and be like, boom, boom, boom. You're gonna get this. You're gonna get Switch Pro. You're gonna get these games, and it's gonna be one of the biggest years of the Switch you've gotten so far. And so I'm expecting that. I'm trying to manage my expectations because obviously there's always room for disappointment. But that's an event that I'm expecting sometime this year.
Yeah,
Breath of
I
the
think
Wild
I think
too.
that happens probably separate from like the E3 timeframe. It probably happens in early fall. Like they do those things separate, and they do them like 2 months before they release the hardware, right? That's what they did with the Switch Lite. So like August, September, I guess that's still a little bit of summer, but that's when I would expect that if it's going to release this holiday, which I'm starting to agree with. Pretty hardcore.
Jeff Grubb, thanks so much for coming through and joining us. Where can people find you? Where can people find your work?
If you just kind of want to follow me, I kind of do everything on Twitter. I tweet too much, so don't follow me on Twitter, but I'm at Jeff Grubb. But if you want to find my stuff, just go to twitter.com/Jeff Grubb and just type it in and leave it. Don't press that follow button.
That's a website,
and then and then go to youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. I think is the best URL to get to it. I put some actually have some like a show where I talk about the Summer Game Mess now. I just started in the last couple of weeks, the Game Mess show live. And I kind of talk people through what's happening, the changes I make. I put one out this morning talking about, I actually added some stuff that wasn't on the list that we read earlier, like the AG French Direct. What is that? A little bit of information on things like that. But it's been a fun experience so far and a lot of good responses to that. And then my writing is always on GamesBeat.com. Come check me out there. Come see my fellow cohorts, Dean Takahashi and Mike Minotti and Jason Wilson. We're always trying to write about the business of games and how they make money and things like that. It's a fun job. I'm glad I have it.
Yep. I am very happy for the work y'all do over there at GamesBeat because it helps me out a lot on Games Daily because you guys have very good stories. See you guys right there. Of course, this has been Kind of Funny Gamescast. Each and every week we get together to talk about the biggest topics in gaming. If you're a Patreon supporter, right after this, we got a post show. Is it a Bless Who? Yes, it is. So stay tuned for that. Of course, I've been blessing. That's been Jeff Grubb. That's been Game Over Greggy. That's been twitch.tv/Andy Cortez. Until next time, rest in peace, Tim Gettys.
Love you, Tim.
Stepped on a rock.